Messi has arrived in the United States. A partnership between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL has emerged, and rumors that MLS teams could be playing the Copa Libertadores have been heating up as well. So today, why don't we talk about MLS, how they would do in the Libertadores, compare them to Brazilian and Argentine teams, and much more. Hi, I'm William Filippo, and welcome to episode 1 of a 2-episode mini-series. This is how it's going to go. Today we have episode 1 of this 2-episode mini-series where we're going to talk about CONMEBOL and CONCACAF. Part 1 will focus on clubs, so it'll be MLS, Copa Libertadores, the Brasileirão, the Argentine League, Lionel Messi, and much more. Now part 2 will be heavily focused on national teams as we will be ranking the top 10 national teams in all of the Americas. That's CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. And that video should be out one day after this one. For this video, I will count with the help of Kevincho. Probably heard of him before. He's a massive Argentina fan, big-time Messi lover, and MLS fan. His links and handles will be on the description of this video. And you see a Brazilian and an Argentine guy, or Brazilian-American and Argentine-American guy making this video. What can go wrong? Well, I don't know what can go wrong. The only thing I can think of going wrong is that this video doesn't get enough likes. So you can do that right now. Let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. And, and we have a sponsor. And play the intro. And thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring the channel. Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a U.S. men's national team fan struggling with the return of Greg Berhalter. No, in all seriousness, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. So for that reason, we are partnering up once again with BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be extremely hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. But when it's online, you can get a therapist from anywhere in the country, sometimes even anywhere in the world. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it is online. It's remote. And by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist as little as in a few days. And if the therapist that they match you with is not the right fit for you, they will replace him or her for another therapist with no additional cost. You may sign up and register now with the link that I placed on the description of this video, which is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. That is betterhelp.com/tacticalmanagertv. Yes, we used Tactical Manager TV. That link will also give you 10% off on your first month, and in the process, you'll be helping the channel avoid bankruptcy. So once again, thank you, BetterHelp. Okay, Kevincho, you're back
Hey, buddy. I'm back, baby.
at hostile territory.
No, hey, not really. Hey, we're friends. Oh my God, what is this background, bro? Chill. That's a little too yellow for me, my friends. Okay, that's whatever. I knew what I was coming into. All right, I knew who I was talking to. I'm ready. Okay, but you do too. All right, we're not. We're both in little thin ice.
Yeah, I saw there a Maradona picture,
Right. Come
Argentine
on.
flag, Argentine
Sure.
map, jersey,
Sure.
jersey that you're wearing. So I'm
Let's
just like,
not Orlando. Not Orlando. Right. Yeah.
no,
Go
no, I'm
ahead.
wearing Orlando. I'm not wearing Argentina, but I got Brazil here. And today we have some very fun topics. So this, whoever is watching right now, this is part 1 of a 2-episode series. This part 1, we're going to focus heavily on MLS, Copa Libertadores. We'll talk about the Argentine League, Brazilian League, how we think MLS compares to that, how would MLS do in a Copa Libertadores, and obviously the Copa Interamericana that's coming back next year. We'll talk about that. So if you don't know what it is, you're about to find out. Part 2 will be the Copa America. We're going to talk about, well, not really the Copa America. We're going to go through the top 10 nations in the Americas, which the theme surrounding that is the Copa America. So that will be a national team episode, but that's the other episode. Kevin, Kevincho. I'm just going to call you Kevincho. Let's talk about the Copa Libertadores and all the rumors coming up right now. The big rumor is that CONMEBOL wants Messi to play in the Copa Libertadores, and they see an opportunity with that with Inter Miami. So my first question to you: you see many MLS fans downplay the Copa Libertadores, and you see some people also that are maybe MLS fans, but a bit more like, I guess, like U.S. soccer fans, I guess, overrate the Libertadores, saying that every MLS team will get destroyed there, and then some people are saying MLS teams can even compete there, go to a quarterfinal, semifinals. I'll give you my opinion if you want very soon, but I want to hear yours first. Sending
Sure.
the best MLS teams, including Inter Miami, which I think now just including Messi and Busquets, along with Alba, they became one of the best MLS teams, if not the best MLS team.
Right.
How would you think the best MLS team would do in the Libertadores right now?
Okay. In my in my realistic opinion, like the first time, I'll give you my opinion when I first heard the news. I was like, okay, we know why the little sneak in. If you know these tournaments, especially that tournament, it's kind of been a mix of only South American teams, and then occasionally we've had years where you had Liga MX teams, right? And with Liga MX teams, we've had, I think, two finals in the last 10
Mhm.
years where we had a Liga MX team there. I think Cruz Azul made it, and maybe Chivas or one of those
Tigres,
teams.
right? Or
Oh,
was it? No,
oh
no. There
wait,
was also they also
maybe
made
it's
it to the
three.
final of the Copa Sudamericana, right? Yeah, there
Right.
was that too.
So so we've had Liga MX in this sphere, and I know there's a lot of comparisons with MLS and Liga MX. So you kind of go off of there, and you would assume maybe the top dogs might have a shot. But here's the thing with me. I'm gonna say this, Felipe, okay? In all honesty, even Argentinian clubs, when we travel to Brazil, there's you have fear. And we are used to it. We go there every year. And Brazilian clubs come down to Argentina, they know what to expect. I think there's so many levels. Like you have the atmosphere, the pressure, altitude, all these different things that not that MLS clubs are not ready for, but it is a totally different world. If I'm thinking Inter Miami goes to play against Palmeiras or Boca or River, I don't know in the back of my mind that they're gonna really do well. Especially there's some teams in South America that are so defensively strong, like just play so well as a club. Like, not to gas you up a little bit or too much, but Palmeiras is one of the teams that a lot of people enjoy watching. They just are playing like so fluid. And there's some of these teams that don't look ready. I don't, in my opinion. But that being said, this is a tournament with such high churn, or these clubs have high churn. Palmeiras will hold players for just one big tournament like this tournament, and then let's say Palmeiras get kicked out, they got unlucky penalties or whatever, those players are gone. The churn on in South American clubs are so high. Those young guys maybe want to play one season. So there's a guy from River Plate, Beltran, who just went to Portugal. Literally, his whole goal was, I'm going to play this tournament with River. If we get kicked out, I'm out. And we got kicked out against Internacional.
Wasn't
And
that also with Enzo? He left as soon
same
as they
thing.
were out. Yeah, Enzo
Exact same
Fernandez.
thing. And
Yeah.
that's where it's kind of almost like leverage from maybe MLS or Liga MX teams that would play there, because it's almost like you don't know who you're going to get or who you're going to face when it comes to this time of year. As we know, South America gets picked, all these players get picked to go to Europe all the time. They got scouts there staring at these guys. So sometimes in the middle of these tournaments, you lose players. I think it's really complicated, but the dream would be having three, at least three. It would be the dream. Three MLS teams. I don't want like Inter Miami, because you already know what's going to happen. Inter Miami goes, if they play absolutely horribly, they get grouped or whatever the situation is. MLS is never going to hear the end of it. We all know that. We all understand that. So it'd be great to see like a Cincinnati, Inter Miami, just to have Messi down
LAFC,
there.
LAFC would be a good one.
LAFC is so solid. So I would say that for sure would be, there's a chance. There's always a shot. For me, I'm gonna say this. All right, I'm gonna sound like maybe not the right person to say this. I feel like River Plate got kicked out too early. It felt like we had all this hype and it looked like we were going the right direction, and you get bumped out early. And I don't even think Internacional is that good of a team. Like, they just played well at home.
They know how to play the tournament also. That's another big
Yes,
thing.
that's another thing that some clubs, as we know, only play, like, that's all they focus about. Like they love their league. They want to win their league, of course, but this tournament, with the acts, like the class that it has, it's like a World Cup. You win this tournament, you have cred, for a
Yeah.
whole year.
I'm gonna add a few things because I
Yeah.
thought about this quite a bit, and I think there's a few points to be made about MLS in this tournament. even if they send three teams, I think the first time MLS plays in the tournament, it'll probably be a disaster the first time. It'll be confusing. The environment will be different for the players. The club's also figuring out logistics, everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if the very first edition that MLS plays, if it happens, okay, we're talking about this, it might just be the Interamericana, but there's rumors that it could be the Libertadores. I think if they did play or sent three of the best teams, including Inter Miami with Messi, the first time could be a disaster. I think Inter Miami would even have an edge. And again, that's simply because of Messi. And I think also players like Busquets, even though he never played in South America, he'll be just fine dealing with the environment. He'll know how to handle it. And Messi going to South America, there would be a different vibe. I don't think it's not going to be like MLS that you see the players respect Messi. They're going to respect Messi in South America, but there's also going to be that grit that I want to beat Messi. So we've seen that sometimes South American teams can lose their temper, red cards, and I think Inter Miami could be a surprise. But overall, I do think the first time MLS plays there, it would be more of like an adaptation season. It could be a disaster. It could lose almost every game and get grouped, all three teams that we end up sending if it happens. But I do think it's a good experience. Over time, teams will learn. And I talked about this before. Besides the defense, because the defenses in MLS are terrible by design because of the salary cap, the DP rule, that's the main reason.
Yep.
I think a lot of the MLS teams, they're better, and people took this the wrong way. They're better than the worst teams in the Libertadores. They're way better. They play teams like I watch Libertadores from what I remember, I think since 2002, I've watched every single edition. I saw Juan Riquelme destroy Grêmio back in the 2000s. I've seen all of it happen. I've seen the worst teams, the best teams, the altitude, the home, away. Palmeiras plays a lot in the Libertadores too, so I watch it quite a bit. And I watch a lot of MLS. I can tell you that MLS, they're better than pretty much every Bolivian team that doesn't play in the altitude, right? When it's
Right.
not in the altitude, MLS teams are better than the Bolivian teams. I guess Bolivar actually has looked better now. They have looked better,
True.
but if they play away in the United States, I still give the best MLS teams an advantage. Outside of that, MLS is better than pretty much every single Peruvian team, Venezuelan team. Uh,
Yeah.
and then
A,
and
a
then
lot of the Chilean teams. I mean,
a lot of
it's
the Chilean, and then of course, if you get the top teams from Uruguay, even though they've definitely declined, Peñarol, Nacional, those are probably still better or at the same level as the best MLS teams. But outside of that, MLS is better than those teams.
yeah,
And then of course, Ecuador has built some very strong teams, Colombians top teams, and then Brazil and Argentina. I think they're still levels above the MLS sides.
yeah,
And I know some people disagree with this, but you look at, for example, just the expenditures of the salaries of like Palmeiras and Flamengo, for example, nowadays, they'll be spending like $4 to $5 million a month in salary of players. And I know that's not like the be all, like
yeah.
that's not ultimate, like you're better because you pay more. But
Sure.
again, usually the teams that spend more money in salary, besides Saudi Arabia, spend more money in salaries, you have better players.
Yeah.
And when you talk about a team like Palmeiras and Flamengo that spend $4 to $5 million a month, that's like the salary cap of MLS without
Exactly.
the
Right.
DPs that they spend a
Exactly.
month. So, of course, there's going to be a gap in talent, along with the fact that, especially Brazil and Argentina, but that goes for pretty much every South American nation that's not, I guess, like Venezuela, Bolivia. We can go put Colombia in the mix, Uruguay in the mix, Ecuador in the mix. There's better academy players coming up, and those are the cheap players. And they're
Yeah.
coming up, and they're better than the academy players in MLS. People like to hear this or not. It's a fact. Just look at the players in Europe. The Brazilians, the Argentines, the Uruguayans, there are world-class players being developed.
Right.
While in the U.S., we seem to not have reached that stage. I think the issues we haven't really figured out how to develop the players from ages 8 to 12. After that, we do a good job, but they already arrive maybe not the same skill level as an Argentine player or a Brazilian player or creativity at that level. So I think the Copa Libertadores would be that. I'm 100% sure that the best MLS teams put Inter Miami in the mix,
Sure.
LAFC, Cincinnati. I would even put like the Sounders. They kind of know how to play
Yeah.
cup tournaments, regardless of their current struggles. They know how to play cup.
Yeah.
They would be better than the bottom teams. I can even pull up here like the Copa Libertadores this year, the group stage.
Yeah.
You look at teams like maybe Aucas from Group A. They would
Yeah.
beat that team. Metropolitanos also. That's a team from where's Metropolitanos
Uh,
from?
uh,
They're from Venezuela.
Venezuela. Yeah.
Like
Jose
the
Ecuador.
MLS teams that would send are all better than these teams. So when people say they're just going to get destroyed, no, it would raise a little bit the competitiveness level of the Libertadores because they
Yeah.
would be better than all these teams. But I do think, yeah, the first edition would be quite an experience. Like you said, the
But what do you
environment is
think?
different.
what do you think if it went? I don't know how they would really structure this, but if they're coming back to the United States, do you think these teams would be uncomfortable out here? Traveling out here, middle of the season, coming out to I'm not saying the atmosphere is gonna, mess them up,
No,
but do you think it'll still because I think I saw like a preseason game, like River Plate was playing in Texas or something, and it looked like I know it's preseason, so who cares? But it looked like nothing phased them. It looked like the same old team. They had even their kids and they were barely trying. But that was a lot of the comments I saw on Twitter at least is like, okay, but yeah, imagine, you know, I don't know, Corinthians in Cincinnati. They're gonna have a tough time. I'm like, I don't know. I don't
I,
know.
I, I don't, I don't. I guess if you put them to play in an environment that's like freaking snowing,
Right.
which again, MLS, we don't really go into the winter, so we don't deal with
Yes,
that.
right.
But I mean, it could be snowing depending because the Libertadores goes till like November. So
November, yeah.
depending on like even though the final would be in South America, right?
Right, sure.
But I don't see it affecting. And even if they play here during the summer, Brazil starts their season during the Brazilian summer, which is freaking hell. It's like it's hot as shit. So I don't think it would be an issue. And I mean, Argentine teams have played in Brazil during like February and March, which is
Yeah,
pretty much like the end of the summer in Rio, which is horrible to play. So I don't think they would feel that. The one thing they could feel because they're human is like the hours of traveling,
sure.
maybe like 6, 7 hour travel. Time zone can be an issue. So that's one thing they could. Well, time zone, not really, because even Argentina, it's
It's
like two
yeah,
hours from.
2
Yeah, it's
hours, 2,
not. Yeah,
3 hours.
not even, but it's just like the distance of traveling
Sure, yeah.
being the hotel. That's like the only thing I think they would feel. The environment, the atmosphere, no, they wouldn't feel
Right.
anything in
That's
regards to that.
no.
And that's
No
about it.
offense.
And weather would be fine. But again, if you put in, even though some South American teams would be very well adjusted to the cold, like Argentina and Uruguay, they would be very well adjusted, snow
Yeah,
or not.
I mean, even people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, are you guys used to the cold?" It's like, it gets cold, dude. Like, it's not like 10 feet
Not
of
in
snow cold,
Brazil.
but not in
Brazil
Brazil.
won't.
Not in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, also we have all these Brazilian players going to Europe and they're playing like Russia and places that are super cold and they do just fine. Like people adapt. The thing is, yes, they might struggle once or twice. The same way we're saying MLS teams when they go down, the first edition would probably be a disaster. But you adapt, you figure it out. I want to talk about before we dive into Brazilian League, MLS, and actually, let's dive into that one. Let's dive into that one because very often when you interact with MLS fans on Twitter, you get some very reasonable ones, and you get some that sometimes give me the impression that they only watch Major League Soccer. They really give me that impression because
Yeah,
they go on, they
amen.
say, "Yeah." So let me dive into that. I've heard multiple times, many of them say that MLS has surpassed the Argentine league, and the other take is very rare, but I've also seen some even say that it's catching up very close to the Brazilian league. I've seen that too. We do see in South America that now there is a gap between the Brazilian league and the Argentine league, especially when it comes to like how much money Brazil can spend. It's quite clear. Development, Argentina is still developing, Brazil is still developing, but the players that Brazil can sign, like Brazil can probably sign the best Argentina players out of Argentina if they
Oh
want
yeah,
to.
it's been happening. We've had
Yeah.
like when we had Enzo Fernandez for River Plate just go to Brazil, and I'm like, wait, what is this direction that he's going at? And he played pretty
Wait,
oh
who?
right there.
Who?
Enzo Fernandez went to or sorry, Enzo Fernandez.
No, not Enzo.
Not Enzo, the other Fernandez.
I
uh
forgot his name now too, but
oh
not
my
Enzo.
god, what not Enzo, not Enzo. Another one, skinny guy. Plays for River. Well, now he's back in River. But even when he went that way, my whole family like, what is he doing? Like, why would we do that? We're lining up. We at the time, I think we even had Julian Alvarez. Like we were like, okay, we got some young guys too surrounding him. But straight up, the our president was like, what are you gonna do? They have money and they're gonna get our players.
Yeah, and even Boca and River, which are the top dogs of Argentina, they were getting
Yeah,
players on loan from Palmeiras that were bust for Palmeiras. Merentiel
right.
went to Boca,
Yep.
Borja went to River, and those were
Borja, yeah,
players that like Palmeiras was like, get rid of this guy. We don't want him
yeah.
here. And there you go. So
Yeah,
there's that. But in the sense, like I don't think MLS is anywhere close to the Brazilian league right now in terms
no,
of like well,
nowhere.
they could if they raise the cap, they could spend as much as the Brazilian clubs, but they
Sure.
don't. But I think when it comes to talking about level of competitiveness, there's a lot that goes into it. I
Yeah.
do think how strong your academies are play a role. And as much as the academies here have improved, they don't get anywhere close to the Brazilian development system. I don't care what people say. It's not even
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Brazil's developing world-class players every 2 or 3 years, at least one, while
Yep.
we never had one. I guess MLS could take credit for one. Alphonso Davies, to me, is the only
Davies. Yeah.
world-class player that it's ever developed, and it's looking more like an anomaly more than anything.
What you're saying is this is like I know you've been doing this way longer than me, but like that's like the annoyance that keeps coming up to me because people go, no, the US develop great players. Boom. Let's look. We got players out in Europe. And then they go, yeah. And they almost include MLS. Like, no offense. And I do almost all MLS content. Those are two different things. We got US.
Who are the players? That's a great point. That's a
Like,
great point because Pulisic was not MLS. That's our
what?
best
Yeah,
player.
exactly. Yes.
Gio Reyna, there's credit there to give MLS
Yeah.
to Gio Reyna, even though I think it has
Davies.
a lot to do with him growing up with an environment with a professional parent, like the
Yes.
parents are
Yeah.
professional, but MLS gets credit. But then you look at others like Yunus Musa was in MLS, Balogun was in MLS, Dest was in MLS, A-Rob was in MLS. So when you look at it, what players has MLS actually developed that were successful abroad? Alfonso Davies, that's not an American player, but that is simply a world-class player. We do need to give credit from Tim Ream was from MLS a long time ago. Weston McKennie
Sure.
was
Yeah.
MLS. Tyler Adams. But again, when you look at
But
these
the
players,
comparison is like
none of these
unreal.
players touch the Brazilian national team. That's the point. That's the
Exactly.
hope, or the Argentine national team. And these are the players, these are the best players MLS is sending abroad. Now, are they good players? Of course they are. They're making it
Sure.
in top leagues. Of
Yeah.
course they're great players. And when you compare to what MLS was doing in the late 90s when it was founded, early 2000s, that's like a whole new level.
Whole
But
different world.
there's a whole like there's a lot to be done for you to catch up to
Yeah.
Brazil, and you might never do it because I mean that's the number one in the world right now in terms of
Yeah.
exporting, and then Argentina is probably number two
Yeah.
in
For
terms of at
sure.
least development and putting talent out there. They
I
just won a
think
World Cup.
I think you mentioned before multiple times, and I agree that if we put them side by side, MLS and the Argentinian league, I think a lot of the MLS sides would definitely beat the lower Argentinian league teams. And it's not like just I'm not talking development or young players or whatever, but to be real, there's like no money. First, Argentina's like in the craziest recession, but like these clubs don't have money, and those clubs that are not like the top 5 or 4 are nowhere near. Like they're just not prepared. They just don't have the money to get these players. So if I see I was gonna say Sporting, maybe not use Sporting, but like let's say a Cincinnati playing any team that's not River, Boca, Racing, any of those teams, they could win. They could easily win, no
Yeah.
problem. So I am all for that comparison. I totally agree. Actually, someone came after me and was like, "Yeah, that's why our teams would beat your worst teams." Like, yes, I agree for 100%. I think in South America, everyone will agree. The Brazilian league, with what they're doing and with the investments, the money, even television, right? I can watch a Brazilian league anywhere right now. It's freaking sick. They're doing everything right that they're gonna continue to be the top dog. Argentina second, but I don't think it's a close second. I think there's a thick gap, and then you have all these other countries right behind your Uruguay, Colombia, blah blah
Well,
blah.
you see it with the money spent that we talked about. The salaries in Brazil are extremely high. They're competitive with some leagues in Europe.
Yeah,
Uh, and when you take into account, you just look at the last few Libertadores, right? The last
sure.
final was all Brazil, Atletico and Flamengo. Flamengo won. Before that, it was Palmeiras and
And the
Flamengo.
Flamengo,
Am I
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Palmeiras and Flamengo. That was
And then
another
River
Brazilian final.
Flamengo, I think.
Before that was Palmeiras and Santos. That was
Oh
another
no, yeah, you're
Brazilian
right.
final.
That
And then
and
prior
then
to
it
that
was
was Flamengo and River, but
yeah,
Flamengo beat River. So the
yeah,
last four Libertadores, Brazil has won. And out of those four, the last three were just Brazilian finals. So
yeah.
Brazil, in terms of spending and quality, and we're heading to that again this season.
Yeah, oh, it's gonna
We're
happen
heading,
again.
yeah, at
I mean,
least one
Boca
Brazilian.
had the stupidest group ever. They get out, and who they're playing? Another Argentinian team. So there's only one Argentinian team coming out of that side. Brazil is going to own this, and I can't go for either one of those teams. So I'm just going to go for a Brazilian team. But
Palmeiras.
Palmeiras, let's go. I mean, I legitimately will say that because people go, "Oh, Brazil is spending more money." Because I have Argentinian friends that are just like, they're spending more money. Like, it doesn't mean they're better. Like, whatever. But the problem is I'm seeing Brazilian clubs like at the age limit where players maybe will think about retiring, but they'll just go maybe 2 or 3 more years in Europe. They're like, let me go to Brazil, play, get paid almost the same, crazy amount of money, play in some of the best atmospheres on planet Earth, be idolized as a god. It's like so attractive. And like MLS, maybe hopefully one day can unlock the money part. The other side is going to take many years to get to
Yeah.
that type of
I think
level.
Brazil also has one thing that's very attractive. We talk about how the MLS is just attractive because it's the United States, and it is attractive. You want to live, most people want to live here. And Brazil is also very attractive in that sense. The only issue I have with Brazil nowadays, and I lived there for 13 years. I lived over a decade in Brazil. It's safety, right? There's areas, and trust me, it's a lot more dangerous. I've traveled to a lot of places in the U.S. I've been to California, Texas, New York. I've been to the entire East Coast. I've been to Kansas. So I've been around in the United States, and I live in Brazil for a while. It's much safer here. It's not even close. But in terms of lifestyle in Brazil, if you have money, you live in a good area, trust me, you're going to have a lot more fun there than I would say 99% of the US. If you don't agree with me, go to Brazil for a little bit and you'll see what I'm saying. So that is another thing that's attractive to a lot of players. If they can make the same money, like, I can live in Rio de Janeiro and make this amount of money. That sounds pretty good to me. And then they go.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
there was even this stat here that the Palmeiras coach Abel Ferreira that you briefly mentioned there,
Mhm.
he makes more money than the Dortmund coach.
Right. That's nuts. A
That's
top club in Europe.
that's
Like,
the second team in Germany.
yeah.
So, and he makes more money. So that I think that's one thing that MLS fans sometimes that don't really watch other leagues or don't understand that they can't picture that. No, MLS has not caught up to the Brazilian league. The gap is still quite big,
Yeah.
and the level of competitiveness that you mentioned, like Internacional is like a mid-table team in Brazil right
Right.
now. They took down River Plate, so I do think that the top MLS teams would probably fight for relegation in Brazil. I think that's
Oh,
what it
yeah.
would be for the most part. We
Yeah.
saw Vasco come here, and MLS is interesting because MLS has so much parity, like you talked about, that Messi joins the worst team. And of course, it's Messi, but he
Sure,
joins the worst
sure.
team with Busquets. And all of a sudden, they're legitimate title contenders for the league. If Messi
Yeah.
joined the worst team in the Brazilian league,
No
would they go
shot.
up? Of
Hell
course, they
no.
would go up. But they would go up from like the worst team to maybe like a
To
mid table team.
I was gonna say they're not gonna win the cup. They're gonna win the
No,
league.
no, no, no. Like I'm pretty sure if he joined, who's last in Brazil? Probably like Curitiba, something like
Yeah.
that. If he joined that team, they would not be finishing ahead of Palmeiras and Flamengo in the
No,
league.
no.
It wouldn't
But
happen.
that's the thing that I'm going through just like on a tangent right now is when he was announced, I was like, okay, he's living this like retirement or post success world and he's chilling, whatever. And he's like vocally like, oh, I've won anything, everything. I don't care about anything else. In my head, I'm like, okay, this Miami team is gonna get slapped every day. Not like that I didn't think Messi sucks or whatever. Even when they were playing okay, I'm like, okay, but guys, these are very close games, like all this stuff. Like, I don't think they would be well. And now I'm just getting heat from South America. All my South American buddies are like, Kevin, this is your league? Huh? What is this? What's going on? Like, it, like, not to be offensive to our own league, right? But in the back of my head, I'm like, I can't defend what I'm watching because now I'm telling my family to watch, and they're like, how are teams not winning 7-8-0 in your league, Kevin? Looks like you don't defend. I'm like, God
I
damn.
I think they're not understanding this whole parity argument because the thing
Right.
with South America is the gap between River Plate and the last place team in the Argentina league
Yeah.
is like massive. The gap
Yes.
between the best MLS team and the worst is not that big.
Not
It's
not
like a
at
little
all.
details and it changes. So adding Messi to a team in MLS has that massive change.
Right.
That's what they're not understanding, right? Because
Yes.
they think about it in the terms of their own league. I think about like I'm thinking of like Brazil and I'm thinking of Flamengo. And then
Yeah.
like, okay, put Messi in the worst team, Flamengo will still win most games. But
Yes.
that's not MLS. The gap is not that big. So when
Yeah.
you put Messi and Busquets, all of a sudden, boom, it changes.
Yes.
And MLS is a strikers league. It's a strikers league because mainly the defending is bad by default. There's a salary cap of 5 million or a little bit
Hey.
over 5 million and DPs. So the owners, they're going to spend money, the most money on the players that sell and bring more money and more viewers. And those are attackers. So by default, defense is bad. When you put a player like Messi in a league that by default, the defense is not great,
Mhm.
or sorry, not by default, by design. I'm using
Yeah.
default. By design, it's not great. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Messi is gonna doesn't matter what form he
Well,
is Messi, and
just
he's gonna
like
do
your
it.
best friend said, Alexi Lalas,
My best friend.
who wants defending? Who cares about defending, right? Filippo doesn't. I mean, defending doesn't win championships. Filippo, like, come on.
No, no,
I
he
agree.
didn't mean it that way. He meant like
Yeah,
defending doesn't bring viewers. It
right.
brings
Yeah, the
championships for
attraction,
sure.
sure. Yeah, I
He wants
think
it to be by design, the bad defending by
exactly.
design.
I think you're right. There's two sides of, let's be honest, ignorance on both fields. Like in South America, they don't understand what you just said. And then in MLS, they don't really understand the South American side. So how perfect would it be if we just, you know what, Filippo, let's just play each other then, baby. Come on. I agree with you. Just to finish your point, to circle it back around, I think the first several years, sorry, these dogs are driving me nuts. The first
Mhm.
several years, like it's gonna be a mess. But then I think hopefully over time, some MLS teams will make it farther and farther. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it can only benefit MLS, and it'll bring some money into South American clubs because when you put Messi to play, the world will watch, and so that's probably it. But before we move on to the next segment, which is going to be talking about national teams, the Copa America, which is another episode that people watch, I want to talk about this: the return of the Interamericana Cup in
The
2024.
the
It'll be
easiest
played in,
title ever,
yeah,
Interamerican.
yeah, if people, it's Copa Interamericana. For anyone that doesn't know, this cup actually exists. It was founded in 1968 and it was abolished in 1998. So it lasted for like
Wow.
30 years. I'm not sure if there wasn't an edition in every single year of those 30 years, but there were
Right.
several editions, mostly won by Argentine clubs. And the last edition was won in 1998 by DC United defeating Vasco da Gama. Now, I don't
All
know much
right.
about that game. I don't know if Vasco sent their best. I don't know if they
Right.
cared.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
anyhow, that's the history of this tournament, and it's coming back in 2024. There's an agreement with CONMEBOL and CONCACAF, and there'll be four teams. It'll be played in the United States, as far as we're concerned. The CONCACAF Champions League champion will go, and that is Club Leon. That's confirmed. The champions of the 2023 Leagues Cup will go. That is Inter Miami and
Right.
Lionel Messi, and those are the ones representing CONCACAF. So Liga MX team and an MLS team. Now for South America, it'll be the 2023 Copa Libertadores champions and the 2023 Copa Sudamericana champions, which we
Mhm.
won't know till like November or late
Right.
October. There's like we talked about, Flamengo's been out, but Palmeiras are still there, Boca Juniors are still there, so there's still some very good teams. What do you think of this tournament? When I first saw it,
Mhm.
I was like super hyped, and then when I thought about it more, I continued to be hyped. What do you think of it?
No, yeah, I think it's perfect. Like what it's crazy because this ended like literally the year I was born. So I know really nothing about this, but just seeing these champions side by side, because what we're gonna get is, if you see the South Americans are on one side, obviously, and the CONCACAF side is on the other, it is going to be what should be a good representation of just where our top teams at. If we take this seriously, which I'm praying and we're all hoping that, obviously, let's say Palmeiras wins it all. Palmeiras sends their first team. They are taking it seriously, and then let's say Miami's going all the way. Of course, I would assume the Concacaf teams are going to try as hard as they can. But yeah, if it's taken seriously, first teams are going. It's going to be. It makes sense for it to be in the United States for the viewership and everything. I'm super excited. Also, low key excited that I get to see some CONMEBOL teams that I've maybe never seen live. That's kind of a dream to watch. A Palmeiras play or something live. So yeah, I don't see anything bad. And honestly, if the CONCACAF sides do bad, I mean, are we too shocked? No. If they do a little bit of an upset, we got some storylines. We have great discussions. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I'm super excited, and we know everyone that doesn't really pay attention to these leagues, maybe our European friends, might be paying attention to this just to be curious on what the best teams are in these playing fields and how they compare.
Yeah, I'm with you on everything you said. I love this tournament the way it is formatted. I'm 100% sure that Club Leon and Inter Miami will send their best, and I am 99% sure that CONMEBOL will send their best because there's going to be a big prize money. So they'll be here. It's a short tournament. They'll be here. What is interesting here is that we also don't get technically the two best teams in South America. we get the Libertadores champion, which is technically the
Right.
best one, but we get the Sudamericana. And usually the champions of the Sudamericana, they're not the greatest. They're
No,
usually worse.
it's like the Euros champions. You're
The
like that's
Europa
like
League. Europa
yes,
League, yeah.
the Sevilla would be in this final
Yeah,
versus City.
exactly,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. But it's still interesting. It's still
Yeah,
balanced. It's still gonna be a very competitive team. I'm looking forward to this, and hopefully my team Palmeiras makes it. And if they do make it, it looks like they're gonna be playing Messi. So
Messi, let's go.
I'll be there. Just like Pep Guardiola said,
That's
I'll
what
be
we're
there.
meeting
We'll
up.
be there.
Well, me and
We'll be
you,
there.
come on. You in a Palmeiras kit, come on.
We'll be there. No matter what, I'll
No
be
matter
there.
what.
I'll pay $1,000 for that
I
ticket,
don't
but
give a
I'll be
fuck.
there.
That's our Super Bowl. Come on. Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
think one point that to finish up on this tournament that maybe people know, but really think about how much these players and clubs are fighting is the prize money is like 15 million for I think I don't know the Sudamericana. I don't know if it's 50 million. I don't think it's that much, but $50 million as a champion, and of course you get crazy amount of money as you go along. But these clubs and these players, obviously with bonuses and all that, they fight like to the death. That's like the atmosphere, and the atmosphere of the crowd is the same thing. It's like the greatest bragging rights ever. So I hope in that tournament, it's going to be the biggest flex to be the best of the Americas. That's how we're all going to see it. Palmeiras champions of North and South America is what we're all going to see.
It's
I'm
it
excited.
it's almost like a teaser to like a Copa America with everything, the King of America. I love this tournament, and I mean, Argentine people, I know Brazilian people. They're gonna take it seriously. They're not gonna see it as a joke, and I know MLS won't. So it'll be a good test for all teams. It'll be played also in the US, so that's a little bit of an advantage for Major League Soccer. They won't have
Sure.
to deal with that environment, but I kind of like that a bit because it evens out the playing field a bit more. So I like it. But
Yeah.
everyone, Kevin Cho is here. I put the link on description. Go subscribe to his channel, Twitter account, everything. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you think MLS will do in the Libertadores? And for the Copa Interamericana from next year, how do you think they're going to do? Inter Miami and Liga MX? Leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you guys on the next segment, which will be about the top 10 nations in all of the Americas.
Let's
National teams,
go.
not clubs.